But I thought to myself, well, here these people make millions of dollars a year and they're walking around reading the script and then setting the book down and then rehearsing it. I thought, well, I think that's what I need to do. And I've got to teach that. So PDR, practice, drill, rehearse, so that the phraseology, the words become a natural part of you. And I promise if you do that, you'll not only make more money, have more fun, build a huge career, and hopefully let fame and fortune become your normal diet of life.
The Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods of sales, Mr. Tom Hopkins.
Selling could be called a universal language.
I've probably read How to Master the Art of Selling 50 times. The book that I refer to everyone as the sales Bible, if you will.
You sold 365 homes in 1 year, a record that still stands, 365 homes.
Found out about him, read his book, and I was like spellbound.
You gotta believe in what you do.
The impact of Tom's work on my life is immeasurable. You could say in many respects, Tom didn't just change my life, Tom helped save my life.
Hi guys, and welcome to Millionaire Brand Creation. I'm your host, Michael Banovac, and I'm super excited to have a friend of mine on here, Tom Hopkins. And many of you know Tom Hopkins is America's #1 sales trainer. He has had over 5 million students at his seminars, has sold over 3 million books, and also wrote the best-selling book, How to Master the Art of Selling. So without further ado, how are you, Tom? How are you doing this morning?
Well, great, Michael. It's exciting to be on your program and, of course, have this friendship for all these years. And as you know, your father and I go back, many years. And so wonderful. I'm thrilled to be here and share some thoughts and concepts with your people.
Oh, I love it. Well, I thank you so much. And if you can, take us back to your childhood, Tom, and what gave you that entrepreneurial zest and spirit that got you on your journey?
I quit college after 90 days, which was really one of the first things I did that my father almost disowned me, because my parents, like a lot of parents, felt that if you don't have a college education and a degree, the odds of you becoming anything are very, very small. And so I came home midterm and my dad says, "What are you doing home?" I says, "Dad, I made a decision that I don't want to go to college. It's not the academic setting for me." And I had never at that point, Michael, seen my father really cry. Tears filled his eyes. And he said, "Son, you're my son, and I'll always love you. Even though based on this decision to not go to college, you'll probably not amount to anything." And of course, that was very emotional for me. I went in my bedroom, sat on the bed, and was very depressed that my dad basically said, "You're a loser." And that night, my Uncle Don was coming for dinner, and I'm sitting in my bedroom depressed, and he walks in and he says, "Tommy, what are you doing? Your father tells me that you decided not to go to college." And I said, "Uncle Don, I got to level with you. The academic setting, college is not for me. I barely made a decent grades in high school. And college, I think, is not going to be right." And so he said, "Well, what are you going to do with your life?" And I said, "Uncle Don, I have no idea." He says, "Well, as you know, I'm the general manager of Bethlehem Steel, which was a huge steel company in Los Angeles." And he said, "We've been given the contract to build the Los Angeles Dodgers Stadium.
Oh, wow.
And we need iron workers." He said, "Show up Monday, we'll let you become an iron worker." Well, if you that don't know, an iron worker is probably the hardest physical labor on the planet. Most of you, I know, have seen a swimming pool built where they will put in pieces of steel like this, which would be called like a number 4 bar of steel. Well, in a bridge, Dodger Stadium, the bars are a number 11 bar, which would be almost that round. They're 60 feet long. They weigh 208 pounds. And the only way they get from the truck that dumps them in the dirt out to the deck of a building is men, like animals, have to carry them.
Right.
I showed up. I was only just 18, scared to death. And I think because the men on the job knew I was the nephew of the general manager, Uncle Don, that they really decided they were going to work me.
They were going to give it
And
to you.
they did. I, Michael, carried more steel than any of these men. And of course, I always, when I do a seminar, I walk out and tell the story to the audience. And I go, yeah, I was 6'2" when I started carrying steel. And now look at me, I'm 5'7", which of course they laugh and think that's a cute joke. But I did it for a year, and after a year I said, I just don't know what else I'm going to do with my life. And luckily another one of my relatives, a friend and relative, he was owner of a real estate company, and he said, Tom, you know, you've got a nice way with people, you're communicative, why don't you get a real estate license? And of course, the first thing out of my brain and mouth was, I can't pass that exam, I'm not that smart. Which I really had a low self-esteem at that point in my life. Sure enough, I failed the real estate exam 3 times.
Wow.
And was again ready to quit. And luckily, I had a friend say, Tom, go one more time. So I passed on the 4th try, got my real estate license, knew nothing about real estate. And luckily, I went to work in this company. The first week, one of the top people in the company said, Tom, what you need to do is find who the best person in your office is, then copy, learn what they say, and you become like an actor or actress saying what they say. Well, you know, I've always been coachable. That's one thing I've been. And so I found the highest income person in the whole office or company was a woman named Rose Lane. And I went to her humbly, and I said, Mrs. Lane, I'm Tom Hopkins. I just got my license. I'm only 18, scared to death. But a man who was very successful said I should find a top producer and then find what they say and do and just mimic and copy them. And if you'd be kind enough, I would so love to have you let me copy you. Well, she was so gracious. She said, fine, Tom, you can come on listing appointments with me. You can come when I show homes, which I did, Michael. And back then, I know this sounds funny, but we didn't have recording devices of any type, really. There was not cassette players or anything. We had records. But I took a pad and took copious notes on everything she said, everything she did. And I, like an actor or actress, started rehearsing what to say. And what I really feel is many people who go into any type of sales, be it insurance, real estate, computers, whatever, they go into selling because they're talkers and tellers and speakers. And the sad truth is the top producers I've ever known have 2 basic concepts they master. And number one is they're excellent questioners and eloquent listeners. Now, the reason I stress this, Michael, is many people who go into selling go because they're outspoken, they're talkative, people around them, friends, relatives, say, man, you're so talkative and you're outgoing, you should get into sales. So they get into sales, but then they keep talking and telling instead of asking and listening. So I have done my best all of my seminar career, and you were so kind to let the folks know that I've had over 5 million people attend my live seminars in the last 42 years, hard to believe. And the basic concept I always start with is master questioning and listening, more importantly, than talking and telling. That has been my whole goal in teaching, is to get people in sales to realize that whoever's talking in a conversation is only learning what they already know. The person that's asking the questions and probing and getting the other person to talk they are really learning what they need to know. You that are joining us, I hope that you can maybe take my basic concepts of being a master asker, not a talker teller, and make sure you grasp that, because the master asker leads people with questions, and that's why they really do so well in selling. And I had to work on this because I am pretty talkative and outgoing and communicative. But I really started this concept, and I begin with a couple, a husband and wife, which were normally the people I sold homes to, of course. And I'd always start off by saying, before we get into what we're going to do, I'd love to ask you a few questions. What is your main goal in finding a property? And do you have some type of idea about how large a home, how many bedrooms? And I just start questioning. And you could see the people be so thankful that finally here's a salesperson who's not telling them, here's the best thing you can do, and this is the right home for you, and blah, 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 blah. But I would lead them with questions. And I think as you and I cover more and more ideas and techniques, I'd love to share with the folks some of the questions that I've tried my best to not only use, but to teach. And I think one of the best questions you can ask is what we call the alternative choice, which the alternative choice is a question with two answers, but either answer they give you is, again, leading them towards the yes response. For example, John and Mary, I'm available today, or would tomorrow be better for us to see properties? Now, they can't say yes or no. Pick today, pick tomorrow. Or I can see you tonight at 6, or would you like to make it after dinner about 8? So now I close that decision with 6 or 8. I could show you, and you could drive with me, or I'd ride in your car. Which would you prefer? Well, we can go ahead and drive. Well, super. So if you'll notice, I'm leading them with this alternative choice questioning. So I'd love all the folks that are in our program right now to say, okay, I'm going to start seeing how I can ask a question with two answers. Either answer they pick, I am getting an agreement leading towards the final purchase decision, which is what a pro does. So practice the alternative choice. One of my other second favorite questions is called the tie down. The tie down is a question at the end of a sentence that demands a yes response. That was one, wasn't it? I did it again, didn't I? You're catching on, aren't you? So the tie down is taking isn't it, doesn't it, wasn't it, couldn't it, wouldn't it, shouldn't it, can't you, won't you, haven't you, hasn't he, hasn't she, and nicely putting it on the end of a sentence and giving a nice nod. It makes sense, doesn't it? I'm getting an agreement, aren't I? You're nodding with me. Don't you agree?
Absolutely.
So the tie down is a fun little question. Isn't it, doesn't it, wasn't it, couldn't it, wouldn't it?
In the mid 70s, when you had your big accolade of selling 365 homes in 1 year, was that 75 or 74?
74.
Oh, 74. Okay. So you became almost a celebrity overnight for that accolade, right? How did you transition into your business in 76 and then write one of the best books of all time in the selling?
I was working now my heart out. I loved it. I was getting out of debt. I was building an equity, and I loved real estate. I loved the people, and I was having a ball. And it was about November 15th that the manager of the office calls me in his office, and he says, Tom, I called you in today because I don't know if you're keeping track, but I am, and you have sold enough homes to average one a day for the whole year, and it's November 15th. And if you can do that by the end of the year, where we can honestly put it in the paper, we can honestly let people know that you are and will be probably the first and maybe only salesperson ever in real estate to sell 365 homes, which is an average of one a day for an entire year. And if we can brag about that, you will never be the same.
Wow.
Well, sure enough, the company I worked for at the time, they loved recruiting people. So they put me, in my early 20s in the newspaper that if this kid can sell 365 homes, why can't you come see us and we'll show you how?
Wow.
Well, they were recruiting people like crazy because of what they bragged about. Then, of course, they started asking me to teach what I did. What I said on the telephone to get an appointment, what I said to bring down defense barriers with people who were nervous when they first met me as a salesperson, how to get a rapport built to where they liked me and trusted me. And that's something I hope the folks don't miss. If you have one thing in life you accomplish in your business of selling of anything, have people like you first, then trust you that you're telling the truth and that you have integrity when you do business with them. And that, of course, has been a foundation. And you that have read any of my 18 books, I've always put it in there. Forget selling and think like and trust me first, and I'll lead you with the right questions to the right decision. And it'll be a win for me making a transaction. And it'll be a win for you doing a good opportunity you're taking advantage of. It's so, so important, Michael, to ask and listen. Don't talk and tell.
When you started your business in 76 after your lucrative sales career,
Right.
how did you go about writing what many consider to be the Bible of sales, How to Master the Art of Selling in 79?
Well, what happened is I was very fortunate. I heard of a man that wrote this type of book on selling, and he was gracious enough to really kind of be a co-author and help me in my first book, which was How to Master the Art of Selling, which that book has sold millions of copies because I've tried not only to update it every couple of years, but also try to make it salient to the times that we are in. It covers every aspect of selling, from questioning, listening, of course, all the fundamentals of qualifying a buyer, getting the defenses down so they relax with you. But it is a real how-to book. What I'm happy about is that Amazon, because I am kind of slowing down my life right now, Amazon has taken all my books and CDs and DVDs, and they're marketing them at a huge discount. People can get, I think we used to get $35 for my book, and I think they're like $7 or $8 with Amazon. So anybody who's interested, if you do go to Amazon and then just look up Tom Hopkins books, all of my books, CDs, everything is in there. And again, at about 70% less than I sold all of them for years and years ago.
I had a question for you too. So
Sure.
after your lucrative career, right, and you're on the seminar circuit and you write this
Right.
amazing book, what was fame like? What was the height of your career like when people came to you and they were just like Weldon Long, for instance? You changed the course of his life after prison and all these different things. How was it when all these millions of people came to you and really looked at you for advice and for career guidance?
Oh, it was fabulous. I pinch myself, Michael, to have the wonderful career that I've been blessed with. I know the people that have come to my seminars, they can tell that I do care so much about people. I've had a little philosophy: love people and use money. Don't use people and love money. And I think people need to feel your sincerity, your belief, the integrity you have in teaching. And I was knocked out. What happened was I didn't plan all of it. But what happened is I was just doing little breakout sessions at these big seminars, maybe have 100 people. But one time in Los Angeles, there was over 3,000 people in this big convention in LA. And I happened that normally I didn't speak until the afternoon. But for some reason, I thought I'm going to get up in the very morning and see this thing. And so I got up, and sure enough, I'm standing there at 8 o'clock in the morning in the side, and the president of the whole thing comes over to me and says, "Tom, our featured speaker who's supposed to start the program is caught in traffic in LA. Can you go on?" And of course, I thought, geez, go on with 3,000 instead of my little 100 people. And I walked on the stage, and of course, he walked out. He said, "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a young man who has sold 365 homes in 1 year, averaging one a day." And the audience kind of gasped, because back then, even today, if a person does one home a week for a month, they're doing quite well. So to do 365 in a year, the audience just was knocked out. And I hadn't really decided, but I thought, you know what, I'm just going to walk out and teach what I do. And I started, like I'm with this group with you, master asker, not talker teller, and show your concern with letting you know what they need and want. And so I kind of started with that. And I think I did 45 minutes, and I had never gotten a standing ovation and never saw hardly anyone get one. And I finished my 45-minute talk, and I thanked the audience, and they stood, 3,000 folks stood and applauded because I think the truth of the matter was they were getting usable how-to stuff, not motivation and flow. I mean, hey, jump over the roof of that building and you can fly or whatever, but it was really down on the table truth, kind of like we're doing right here with the alternate choice question, the tie down question, and becoming a very wonderful listener and mastering questioning. So I think this is what people want. They want something they can take right off the program and use in an hour from now, which I hope the folks who are joining us in our short little time will take our concepts and use them and learn them.
There's a lot of real estate agents listening in, Tom. And if you could give, like, let's say you go back to when you started in your mid-20s, early 20s.
Right.
If you could do it all over again and you could give one piece of advice to these young men and women or older men and women trying to reset their careers, what would it be and how would you do it?
Well, I would say the first thing you have to do is get away and spend some serious time on short-term and long-term goal setting. You really cannot achieve something unless you've taken it, analyzed it, put it on paper, how much you're going to make in this month or how many sales you're going to make. And of course, I really believe that every pro I've ever really watched, they start on the first of the month with an outline of what they're going to accomplish, how many transactions they're going to make, how many families they work with families, how many they're going to serve this week or this month. And I used to have a sheet on the top of my desk to where I literally had listed how he's going to earn that month, how many transactions it would take to make that income, how many families or people I would work with. And I had like a detailed goal setting sheet. And so the first thing I try to teach, if you don't know where you're going, you'll end up somewhere else. And so you really need to have a concrete short-term and long-term goal system. And it should be something you can stare down at. I had it on the top of my desk where I could look at it. So I'm focused every day. This is where I'm going this month. This is what I'm going to accomplish. And then, of course, I wasn't counting the things, but when my manager said I'd done all those sales and told me that if I do one a day for a year, my life will never be the same. And that was true. As soon as they put me in the paper, my phone started ringing and realtors would call. And I literally spoke almost for 2 years doing some seminars for free. If they wanted me to fly somewhere, they pay my expenses. I wouldn't charge because I knew, and then folks, you that are watching, you've got to practice, drill, and rehearse. I call it PDR. And every pro I know is a PDR fanatic. You practice what you're going to say. You drill. You rehearse. Many, many years ago, I was just, oh gosh, almost brand new, starting to make a little money. And I went to see a seminar. They made a little announcement that the room next door, they're filming a movie. This was in Hollywood, California. I lived in LA. So I'm in Hollywood. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to walk next door and see what this movie's all about. Well, of course, I walked and kind of snuck in the back, and I was so amazed because it was a famous old movie. And I walked in, and here was a woman, and she had just a casual outfit on, and she had a book in her hand. And here's a man in jeans and short sleeve, and he's got a book in his hand. And I stood there and watched for their whole morning, and they would read the scripts to each other, then set the book down, then deliver the script. And of course, they would be editing as they filmed this. But I thought to myself, well, here these people make millions of dollars a year, and they're walking around reading the script and then setting the book down and then rehearsing it. I thought, well, I think that's what I need to do, and I've got to teach that. So PDR, practice, drill, rehearse, so that the phraseology, the words become a natural part of you. And I promise if you do that, you'll not only make more money, have more fun, build a huge career, and hopefully let fame and fortune become your normal diet of life.
We have about 5 minutes left, Tom, so I really appreciate you taking the time. And if you could, I know you have many great quotes, obviously, but if there's one that resonates with your life and your legacy, what would it be and why?
Well, I have one thing I call a champion creed. And when I first founded the company, it was called Tom Hopkins Champions Unlimited, because my goal is to build people to become champions. And you can't fight the term champion, but I have the creed. I am not judged by the number of times I fail, but by the number of times I succeed. And the number of times I succeed is in direct proportion to the number of times I can fail and keep trying. And please never forget, everybody, in life, you haven't failed until you quit. You will have cycles. Oh, yeah, I had cycles where everything was uphill and I was doing so great. And then all of a sudden, I had a cycle where the things weren't going quite as well. Then another cycle up. And that's life. Life is a cycle. Selling is a cycle. Keep your attitude and your activities up. And right now is a very serious time in the beginning of this year, because your momentum is going to continue. I used to, when I finally became a manager of an office, I would tell my salespeople, I had 18 of them at the time, I'd say, guys, I know it's the end of the year and it's tempting to enjoy the holidays, the Christmas, the New Year's, blah, blah, blah. But if you let your activity go down, your sales and your motivation and everything will go down, and it'll take you a long time the next year to build it. So I try to get people to stay active, write down the short-term goals, as we've talked about, the long-term goals, of keeping contacting people, follow up. I love the term, be a follow-up specialist. Follow up till they buy or die. That's the attitude you have to have.
I love that. Well, you know, you're a father, you're a husband, and I would almost say you're almost a father to millions of people around the world. And if you could give them one piece of advice, what would it be and why, as far as what is the big takeaway of your life and your career? And I loved your documentary, by the way. It was fantastic.
Well, thank you. Well, I think the F word is so important, and that's focus. Keep focused on your life, on your goals. And if you do have a family, you've got to keep balance in your life, where if you're married, you keep your spouse active in what you do together. And if you have children, be an example to them, because the kids will really formulate themselves the way you come across and how you act. And so I guess that would be the thing I would say. Do the most important thing possible every given moment, and realize we all have 86,400 seconds in a day. No one has any more, no one has any less, but do the most important thing possible at every given moment. And you watch how that activity will bring you quality income, quality life. So I guess I love a little GOYA, Goya, get off your anatomy and keep moving to achieve greatness.
I love that. I love that. And the one last thing I would ask is, how can they get to know you better? Where can they follow you? Where can they absorb your content? What's the best way to learn your teachings and become a champion that you've instilled in millions?
Well, as I mentioned, if they go to Amazon and then just put in Tom Hopkins books, all my books, 18 of them will show up. They can get all my stuff there. I really have not got much of a company anymore because I'm slowing my life down. So I think the best way would be to go to Amazon, or they can go to Tom Hopkins International, where we do have a phone and a person. But I would prefer if they just followed up with Amazon, look at what they're offering. They're giving them at a great discount compared to what we used to market them all for. But that would be my thought as the best way to do it, Michael. And I hope all of you got something you can use to have a better life. And if you did, then Michael and I are doing the right things. Don't you agree?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's unbelievable, as you would say, right?
Unbelievable. I just got back from China, and I had a huge following in China, and of course they don't speak English, so I have an interpreter. So he of course says unbelievable in Chinese, and they all just love it. But life is so great for those that love life, love people, and love making others happy with the service that they give. Serve more, earn more, have more, and love more. Yeah.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for taking the time today, Tom. We really appreciate it. And have a wonderful trip. I know you and your lovely wife are taking off today, and enjoy your trip. And thank you again for taking the time.
All righty. All the best to all of you. And thank you, Michael.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.